the younger guys to come fill the middle here, otherwise it's just too far off. And this morning we have the privilege of having Dr. Junias Venugopal. He's actually just my pastor. And 1994, when I was kind of just back from Bible college, I was looking for a person who would speak into my life and to mentor me, hold me accountable. I was young, looking for guidance and that kind of thing. And God led me to him, and he has ever since been a voice, and he's one of the 6 men who hold me accountable in the world, so that I am not without a watchful eye. This morning it is my privilege and pleasure to have my own personal pastor and mentor, and he's been my predecessor with CDC, pastored several years there before me, and I look forward to this morning where he will share his life with you. We're not focusing on a sermon or a study as such, although the word always has its place whenever we are speaking to each other, but I want us to pick his brains as much as possible. And he's a brilliant man, has a ton of experience, so he will give a presentation, but then if you can be prepared with questions and feel free to kind of just draw as much as possible out of this today, and that would be really good. And if there's time left over, or if you have any other leftover questions, we can always bring it back to you later. Pastor Junias, would you join us this morning? Let me say a word of prayer for us this morning. Come. Father God, thank you so much for our dear brother and for his availability, willingness to be with us this morning. Father God, I pray for his health, for his family, for his own concerns and desires, and I pray over him, Lord, this morning. And we brothers, we want to stand with him, Lord, and for everything he stands for the way he serves, the opportunities you've given him to influence his world. We pray, oh God, that you would bless him. Thank you for this morning. Speak into our lives through your servant. In Jesus' name I pray.
Thank you. Good morning. I know some of you very, very well. Some of you, unfortunately, know me very, very well. But I don't know many of you, or most of you, I should say. Let me give you a little bit of my testimony, and then open it up for questions and things. And I'll try and read a little bit of scripture. Pastor Jerry said I should end it at 8:45, so I'll give you at least 20 minutes or so I'll take 10, 15 20 minutes to make the presentation. So I grew up here in India, actually in Delhi. My father was lieutenant in the army, and so I lived in Venugopal Hostel, studied in St. Columbus, and then did engineering in BITS Pilani, and came out and started working in DC and data products as an electrical engineer, assistant sales engineer in sales, and got promoted, went to Madras as the regional manager for the southern quarter of India, at that time, 4 southern states: Andhra, Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. And then I went to the US for an MBA. And during that time, I became a Christian. I understood the Savior, so I became a Christian in March of '75, went to the US in '76. And I was at Cornell doing my MBA, and in the Bible study that I was attending there, they asked the question, if you were to list your accomplishments in light of eternity, what would you list? And I realized at that moment that I hadn't really thought about eternity. I'd become a Christian and I was going to church, but my life and my values and my ambitions and my goals hadn't changed. It was still more money, more money, more money. And it was at that point that I started considering, what can I do with my life that would have eternal significance? I remember watching these people in India used to go for walks, and I remember my father going for a walk, and after he retired, they would all stand at attention and salute each other because they were all army officers. But I couldn't tell, they were all old men out for a walk. Who cared who was a general, who was a colonel, who was a major? They did. I didn't. And I said, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to become an old man and not have anything left of myself except in my memory. And so that's why I decided to go into ministry. I went to Dallas, got a seminary degree, and then came back to India, and so 10 years in the US, came back in 86, and I was a pastor at Delhi Bible Fellowship. When I was pastoring at Delhi Bible Fellowship, I realized something, that I was spending a lot of time preaching and organizing the church and trying to have Bible studies and youth groups. In fact, I was in a Bible study with David Theobald. He was the one who taught the Bible study in West End. And out of that study, we started a congregation. So the West End Bible study, there was another Bible study in Satya Niketan. They both, and Jerry's father George led the Bible study there. And eventually that became the Southwest congregation, and Nirmal was one of the elders there. So there's a lot of memories in this room attached to that birth of that congregation that got planted there. And I realized that we really needed to think in terms of ministry, not only in terms of preaching the word, which speaks to our cognition, but also in terms of the love we have for God, which is much more emotional, and the ability to equip or train people to do the work of the ministry, which is what Ephesians 4 talks about. And so the whole idea of this, we're trying to educate the whole person. And I saw myself in the role of a catalyst, so that I'm not adding to the equation of a person becoming closer to Christ. And that led me back to go to the US for a PhD in education. And then I went as a missionary to the Philippines to do higher education. And all through these various career moves and changes, I saw people who had sort of failed at ministry or at other events and had left or had fought and left. And I started getting a sense of pride, because one of my hallmarks was that the ministry I left would invite me back to do something. And so I was a dean, and at Columbia International University they asked me to join the board of directors. I was a dean at school in the Philippines. They asked me to join the board of directors. They keep inviting me back. So then Moody happened, and so I became the provost, which is it's just a Latin word which means supervisor. And so the word dean means you're a supervisor of 10 people, like a centurion is 100. So there were 10 faculty, so you have, nowadays of course the faculty have more, but that's how the word dean came about. So when the deans needed to report to somebody, you have a dean of students, a dean of undergrad, dean of graduate education, dean of admissions, so they reported to a provost. So I became a provost at Moody in 2010. And it was a wonderful, it had about 3,500 students, 3,000 students when I came. They grew to 3,900, and then we started having a loss in enrollment and slid back to about 3,500. And every time you lose these many students, when we lost 3,500 students, when we lost about 400 students, we lost $3 million. And so it was a big thing for the school, and the president was trying to make some adjustments. So he made some decisions, which was basically retrenching some of the staff, which caused a lot of consternation. Obviously, if you've been working at a college, you feel God has called you, and you're ministering, you're being asked to let go and go back home. So the people in the congregation wrote letters to the board, and the board then acted and asked the president to resign. And because I was the number 3 person, so the first 3 people at the top of the Moody Bible Institute were asked to go home. They asked the president and the chief operating officer to resign. They were a little kinder to me. They asked me to retire. They gave me a retirement package. So to see your name out in Christianity today, as Venugopal retired, and major shake-up at Moody Bible Institute, it was very humbling. And for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of rejection. I felt a failure. I felt, like, oh my gosh, everybody in the world knows I'm a failure, and everybody in the world knows I've been kicked out of this job, and what do you do at that point in time? And so you look through the book of And you look through the life of Peter, and I just, I'm not making a major devotion presentation, but on the night before Jesus crucified, Jesus with his disciples, and he's talking about being rejected and alone, and Peter says, if everybody else rejects you, I'm not going to do it. And Jesus says, you're going to deny me 3 times. He says, no, that's never going to happen. And then they go to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray, and as Judas brings the Roman soldiers, and Peter's got a sword, and he cuts off one of the centurion's ears, and he's all strength, and I'm going to defend Jesus. And then you go to the Sanhedrin, and you have the trial there taking place, and Jesus makes the pronouncement that he's the Son of God, and the high priest, dramatic fashion, tears his clothes and says, this man's blasphemed. We don't need more witnesses. So Jesus has been condemned. The whole thing is over. At that point, Peter shows up on the scene, outside the Sanhedrin door, and he's dressed like a Galilean. So you think he's a Galilean, then he talks like a Galilean. And so it's very easy for people to say, hey, you're Jesus, aren't you? You look like a Galilean, you talk like a Galilean, you must be one. And then he denies Christ. And he denies him again, he denies him a third time. And one of the most poignant, dramatic moments of Scripture, in this chaotic scene at night, it says that Jesus showed up on the balcony, and his eyes and Peter's eyes connected. I mean, how does that happen? Because God wanted it to happen. And in one of the episodes of warning Peter about it, Jesus has told Peter at the Last Supper that the devil wants you. He said, but I pray to God that you will not do it. And so, when you have success, that's wonderful. People are praising you and you're great. Sometimes you thank God, and when you have failure, when you get rejected, that's the toughest time. For me, it was. So January of 10th, there's a board member I know very well, a very good friend of mine. So he says at lunchtime, I'm coming to see you. And I said, uh-oh. Because I know the president had met the board on January 10th. The board was meeting. We knew the decision was coming down. We knew it was going to be bad. We didn't know what it was going to be. So my friend comes to me on January 10th, just after lunch, and he says, I'm trying to get you something here. I'm trying to do something. What about you becoming a consultant? And I said, no. I said, the new guys are coming. They don't want me around. They don't want my advice. I've never heard of my successors ever calling me up and saying, can you give me advice on this? It's never happened in my years of working. It's not going to happen. So why not free me and let me go and just go ahead and take care of the new, since you've already decided that I'm going and you need a new person. And then he came back at 4 o'clock and said, yeah, we've decided you're retired. And so you're retired. And so you always keep, what did I do? You're trying to look at your thing and you say, we grew here, we did this, we did that. What happened, Well, how does this happen, God? Was I unfaithful to you? And yes, there were lots of sins in my life. If God wanted to zap me for any reason, he should have zapped me. I was not a holy person. I was not without fault. Work-wise, I was without fault. But as a Christian, I was with lots of faults. A lot of sins, a lot of struggles. I was, in many respects, an elder in the church, not necessarily holding the office, but I still struggle with sin. I still struggle with honesty. It's much more convenient to tell a lie than to honestly say something, I don't want to meet someone to say, well, I've got another appointment, but you really don't have anything else going on. Just to come out and say how you want to do things. And in every one of the jobs that I've had, I've never applied for a job initially. Somebody has written to me and asked me to apply. When I came to DBF, Pastor Ramesh Richards wrote to me and said, hey, would you be interested? Would you be interested in applying? And so I applied. When I got the job to go to the Philippines, same thing. They wrote and invited me to come. When I came to Columbia, South Carolina, that's a very interesting story because my son was in America as a college student, not behaving well, put it politely. And we as parents, my wife and I, as missionary in the Philippines, were worried about him. And as we were walking, she said, I think you need to go back. We need to go back as a family and be a parent to our son. And I said, I look at this wonderful ministry I'm doing. Why will I give this up? And she said, well, because your son doesn't have any father except you. And so you need to be a father to him. God has a lot of ministers who can serve him. Your son has only you. And so that's what led us to say, I said, so what do you want me to do? Go to America and become, what does an old missionary do? Push carts at a grocery store or something? Because they don't, your skill set is different. And she said, no, I'm asking you to pray. That's a terrible thing to do, to put the burden on prayer, but I did. I started praying. God, what is your will for me? What do you want me to do? And 2 weeks' time, literally to the day, I got a letter that said, we have a position as Dean of Columbia Biblical Seminary, and we would like you to apply for it. You were recommended, we would like you to apply for it. And I applied for it, and they said there are 70 applicants. I said, well, forget about this job. I'm not going to get it. And they said, it'll take us some time to process it. But God in His grace allowed me to be selected and become the Dean at Columbia Biblical Seminary. And our tribe is one of our alumni, Pastor Jerry Dawson. God is Master of Divinity there. And so, in the middle of the struggle, there were people who said, there's some job here, we would like you to consider this, that. I was also 68. So it was like, do I really need to work? So I was struggling with, am I done with ministry at 68? Is there some hope for, redemption? Because I felt bad the way it ended. And then 3 or 4 months later, Wheaton College, which is a very good school in the United States, asked me to apply for a position as an associate dean, and to serve on their cabinet, provost education cabinet. And so I've been doing that since August of this year. And I felt in many senses a sense of redemption. And it's very interesting how God guides us, because Peter, having denied Christ and having gone into this depth of despair, when Jesus rises from the grave and the women see him, he says, go tell my apostles and Peter. He singles out Peter to be given the information that he is risen and that he wants to see them. It's so easy sometimes to say, go and see someone. And such an example to me, if someone is hurt with me, someone is estranged from me, I should make a special effort to communicate with that person that I still love him, that I'm still related to him. And so he said, go and tell my apostles and Peter's. And then Peter's brought up, and there's a scene in Galilee where Jesus asked him 3 times, do you love me, do you love me, do you love me? Just like the 3 times he denied it. But after that, there's the Acts chapter 2, they talk about the Holy Spirit falling on the apostles and how Peter stands up and preaches, and in verse 41 of chapter 2, there's a statement that 3,000 came to know Christ. But that's not where I want to end. I want to end in chapter 4 of the book of Acts. Because Peter and John are arrested for preaching, and they're brought before the Sanhedrin. Do you know where he denied Christ? Just outside the Sanhedrin. He didn't make it inside. Outside the Sanhedrin, he denied Christ. And now inside the Sanhedrin, in a place outside the Sanhedrin, he was denying Christ here. And as they were speaking to the people, this is Peter and John, the priests, the captains of the temple, the Sadducees came upon them, greatly annoyed because they were teaching the people and proclaiming Jesus, the resurrection from the dead. And they arrested them, put them in custody, and the next day it was already evening. And the next day, verse 5, chapter 4 says, their rulers, elders, scribes, Ananias, the high priest, Caiaphas, John, and Alexander, all who were of the high priestly family, they're all saying, why do you do this? And here's Peter's reply. Rulers of the people and elders, if you are examined today concerning a good deed done to a crippled man, by what means this man has been healed, let it be known to all of you and to all the people of Israel that by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom you crucified, whom God raised from the dead, by him this man is standing by you. So the very place where Peter denied Christ 3 times, now inside the Sanhedrin, Peter is so bold and answers, the restoration has been completed. He was frightened for his life, now he's bold. Isn't God wonderful if you watch how he guides and shapes our lives? Anyway, I'm done. Your questions?
Difficult turns in life when you don't understand what happens, why things happen, relationships, why a wife behaves the way she does. Any question, any area where you feel as a man, and as you get older.
Yeah.
Any question?
Your children, I'm not saying I can answer it, but I can ask David to and others to join me in answering. Some of you have better experiences and richer experiences than I have. But at least we can all talk about it together. You know, some of you are looking for jobs or seeking God's will in your lives.
See what restoration and God's faithfulness we have seen in your life. But generally it is not seen. It is those people who are living a right life with God or trying to be. They are always in troubled waters and their life is always at risk. And I've seen people have been blamed for what they have not done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very difficult. Living a Christian life is not that easy. It's very difficult.
Right.
But at this moment, when we see a different life altogether in you, what you would like to give us your insight to this kind of people who have been still struggling,
Right.
and they don't see that restoration. They couldn't see that that calling, as you said, you have been always offered. You got a place where you can be equipped or
Right.
you can
Redeemed or rehabilitated. Yeah.
So, but in general life, we don't see that. We see, more or less life like Peter's life and Paul's life and many those who are always under persecution, under pressure, under say crisis. What would you like to?
Yeah,
advise them?
what Brother George said out here was the idea that we don't always see the story ending well. We don't see the happily ever after. That sometimes it ends. And I think there's sections of a story. My life, my story at Moody has not ended because I don't talk to them, they don't talk to me. God has rehabilitated me and redeemed me or restored me to another ministry position and a different school. I'm in a different college. One of the ironies of life, one of the people who was very angry with me and wrote blog on the websites about it, she's a graduate of Wheaton College. So she calls, as an alumni, you get access, and because she was famous, she knew the provost at Wheaton. So she, when she heard that I had been selected, I had joined Wheaton College, she calls that provost and she said, "Why have you hired this man? You know, he was so, he let so many people go. 30% of the faculty at Moody were let go because of this man." She says, "You made a big mistake in hiring him." And so it did come in. I mean, there was that. I would never call anybody and after they've got a job and that's it. Let God deal with that person. So the story of Moody hasn't ended. It has sort of. It was a sharp break when they said go home, and they retired me. So they gave me a plaque. They said, "For wonderful, faithful service, or good and faithful service at Moody Bible Institute for 7 years," and even there they got it wrong. It was 7.5 years. So there's little rubs out there, you know, that they said, "What happens in 6 months? It's 180 days. I deserve to be recognized for it." So it doesn't end well. You're right. God might redeem and restore you in a different phase, to a different place. But this place where it broke, that break might still have jagged edges that can't be smoothed over. And I think my focus has always been on Christ, and I feel restored because I've got another job. I can move on with my life. I don't have to worry and look back at these people. And there are cases where people don't even get jobs. It could have very well been the Lord's will that I retire and not do anything else for Him. But I think in many ways I have to also find opportunities of service. I got involved in my church. I think there are opportunities to serve God in other places, not necessarily in the place that rejected you or let you do. There's a church father called Athanasius. Athanasius was always getting in trouble with the bishops and the archbishops because he was stood true to the faith. You know, he was always standing up for what is godly and Christ-like. And in those days, the way to deal with a problematic guy was to exile him. So Athanasius would get exiled. Then there would be a change in the leadership of the church. They would bring him back. Then they would say something again, and then they would exile him again. So one of his friends said, "Brother Athanasius, don't you know the whole world is against you? Why are you causing all this trouble?" And Athanasius' reply was, "Brother, doesn't the whole world know that Athanasius is against them?" So it is, who's your inner calling here? And Athanasius knew that. Yes, sir.
Next question.
Yes.
After that.
I'm done. That's it.
As we get older as well, how do we deal with the fear of uncertainty? And you know,
In what? Health?
in earning the capacity to earn, the capacity to hold
Okay.
social positions, things like that. And the more scared we get, the more stupid we act.
Right.
And we cut people off, we say stupid things, we start acting very insecure. And that then starts a ripple effect of hurtful things. And as we get older, especially in the latter years, the insecurity is right across.
Right.
How do we handle that?
Maybe my generation, and probably be my wife. My wife wanted me to hear me say, I'm sorry. The apology is not complete by just being nice and smiling and doing nice things. And so when my wife and when I offended my wife or when we had a fight, she wanted it to end completely. So what I would do is the Indian way, you don't say anything, you just start doing nice things. You start bringing a breakfast, or you say, okay, do you want more money, or do you do this? So you start acting nicely, or acting more nicely than necessary, as an apology. That's how I saw my parents behave with each other. I never heard them say sorry. But for my wife, it was, you can't say it. You got to be able to open your mouth. And, you did wrong. I did wrong. I'll say I'm sorry for what I did wrong. No, you need to say the word say it slowly. I am sorry. That's all it takes. And to me, apology, the recognition that I was at fault, is what helped me restore relationships. And it's harder when you grow older, because with your wife who's a peer, it's a little bit easier. It was harder for me to say I'm sorry to my children. And my son, I remember, heard me yell at his sister, my daughter. And he came to me one day, and I was very impressed with him. I was like 52 or something like that, and he was 30 years younger. He was in his 20s. And he said, Dad, I want to talk to you. And so I said, sure, sit down. And he made sure the room was closed, and he said, the way you talked to Katie was not good. I was said, I'm going to stand up and punch you in the face, right? Everything in me was so angry. How does this guy tell me, this kid tell me that I did wrong? And part of it was the idea as you aged, the respect for the elder, and so I expected people to respect me and treat me as though I walked on water. But I'm a sinful man, and I need to know that. I need to know that in various ways, that even if I did mostly right, if there's some wrong, I need to acknowledge it, and I need to come out and apologize. So at the end of that time, I had to tell my son, you're right, I was wrong. I spoke rudely to your sister. It was not necessary, and I need to apologize to her. And I did, but it took a lot of thing in me. And I think as sometimes we use bluster as older people to justify our innocence, to justify our cause, our actions. But I think what I've realized for the last 30 years, 20 years, is the idea that I need to apologize more readily. And sometimes to make it easy for that other person and me to restore, for some reason we are at odds. We've broken relationships. But if they're a Christian, the unfortunate part of fighting with a Christian is that I'm stuck with them for eternity.
Junias, I was going to ask you, what's the one thing that you have learned from your children?
I think that the ability to treat their ideas as valid and probably more appropriate for them than my wisdom. And so obviously I'm wiser, smarter than my kids. That's a joke. No, I'm not. But to listen to them and to hear them completely, and to say, ask them why they're thinking that way, in the way that what they're dealing with, the issues they're dealing with.
Because I have found as my children got older, they're mentoring me.
Right.
They're teaching me.
In the ways they have dealt with their faith.
Yeah. And that's a great strength that now I'm benefiting from that. Yeah. But I would encourage you.
But you have to be humble enough to listen to them.
Listen to your kids. You've invested a lot in them.
As one grows older, I have doubts like, how do I know that I'm walking right with
So, yeah.
You know, sometimes you have your doubts. There's some way that it can hold
I would say that you shouldn't over-examine yourself. I think you should examine yourself, and I think you should say if there is some element of if I'm doing something wrong. Your most powerful weapon at self-examination is your spouse. She knows everything about you, even things you don't know about yourself. The next most powerful weapon is your children, because they've lived with you, they know things about you which sometimes, all of us don't know things about ourselves. And so when I'm not sure of something, I check with those closest to me and say, what do you think? Should I do this or should I not do that? And then, based on their advice and helpful suggestions, it might be the thing at work, and so I don't talk to my wife about that necessarily because she's not aware of it, but there are colleagues at work that help me there. If it's a church matter, I have friends at church. But my field of vision is this. I don't know anything that's going on behind the field of vision. So I have to acknowledge that there is truth there that I don't know. If someone stands and looks like this, their field of vision encompasses truths that I am not aware of. And so my point would be, have brothers and sisters around you who can speak to your life. And then have faith that you can't know all the facts. If I had known 7.5 years earlier in 2010 that Moody was going to fire me, I wouldn't go there. So did I make the wrong decision by going there? No, I don't think I did. But at the same time, did I want to go there? We were talking about how some decisions are made which end up in disaster. And he said, should I have made that decision or not? And the answer is, at that time, the decision seemed wise. At that time, the decision seemed good. So I would say, you can't wait for 100% of the data to come. You have to get closer to 80%.
How to find, like, whatever decision we are taking is God's will or not?
Yeah. I think if you haven't broken one of the teachings of the Bible, it's God's will. Where it's a clear violation of the teaching of the Bible, then it's not God's will. But I don't think God has, in the scheme of things, God has created you with a personality. When I was a young man and getting ready to be married, there were millions and millions of women around. But there was only one woman who was very, very attractive. I could say there were 2 or 3. But at that point in time, how do you decide between this one and this one and this one? Which is God's will for me? At that time, I think your personality takes over. To whom are you attracted? To who do you think you have affinity to? You have the ability of compatibility. You have the same, you're coming from the same background. You have the same, sometimes they say opposites attract, and that's true, but you have to be the kind of person to whom an opposite is attractive and with whom an opposite is compatible. So I think it's both and. Now I could not have married a non-Christian woman because the Bible is in clear violation of that. So I can't say I fell in love with this girl and she's beautiful and I have to marry her. Because the Bible says no, you can't, because you can't be unequally yoked to an unbeliever. But if she's a believer, now it's like, so there's the other element. It's not only your personality, it's her personality. She might not like it. So you go with what is the best thing in the circumstances. So you look for God's will in God's word and how God has made you. Yes,
When you came back from Philippines to the US, for your,
2003.
no, no, for,
Yes.
well, for your son's sake,
Right.
so what was the intervention you could do in his life
Yeah.
after being there?
Yeah, I think God was only trying to get me to the US. He wasn't trying to get me to intervene in my son's life because he was getting bad grades. The only thing he did was he was playing American football. He was athlete. And so every September or August to December, he enjoyed college because he could go and play football. And then January to May was a useless period in his life when he would not go to school, he would not go to classes and things like that. So that was one of what was motivating us to come back. And so we came back in his last year of college, and there was another missionary in the Philippines. His daughter and he were good friends from high school onwards. They were high school friends. When they became final year college students, they fell in love and decided to get married. So when they graduated from college, they got married, and he immediately changed. It was like 180-degree change. He went from being an irresponsible, careless, useless fellow to being very responsible, wanting to earn money, manage his money very carefully. So God did that for us by giving him a wonderful wife.
As you get older, it's tougher to trust people.
Yes.
How does a believer deal with that? Especially when dealing with people who have let you down or taken a stand against you. How do you just carry on life with them and maintain? They say have water off a duck's back and attitude about it. Stay focused on the outcome. Stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish. Don't let it get to you. That all sounds good.
Yeah.
As soon as they come in front of you, then
You got that anger and
it's
frustration.
difficult. And especially trust. It's very difficult to trust even new people again.
Yeah.
How does one rebuild that or maintain a fresh ability to trust people?
I forget that famous saying. I don't know what the first phrase is, but it's verify always. It's something, do something, but trust somebody, but verify always is how I'm thinking it, but I'm not sure. It's a statement that Reagan made at the time of the signing of some accord with Gorbachev or thing. And so I think that don't forget you have natural wisdom. I think faith and wisdom are not two opposite things. You don't have faith and then let go of your brains. I think your faith and brains work together. And so I would say that when you have someone that you know doesn't have the capacity to deliver, you should not trust that person with that task. When it's a question of a character issue where they will lie to you or something like that, I think the issue is you should always verify. And I try and set it up early in our relationship, especially at work. We say, we're going to do evaluation on this. So it doesn't matter whether you're good or bad or mediocre, we're going to check. And when we check, if you've done wonderful, we'll praise you. And if you haven't done wonderful, we'll try and see what needs to be done to fix it. So I would strongly recommend that in a work situation, verify that. In a question of character about a person, no, I think God has to work in your heart too. You're not a superhuman being. If I can't trust you, then God has to work in my heart to trust you too. And so I pray to God and say, I can't do this, Lord. I'm not ready. Work in my life, equip me to be able to do this, to trust this person. And when my wife and I have a fight, I pray a lot. I said, I don't want to apologize. I don't want to go and say I'm sorry. And I don't know how to restore it. So can you just work in her life so that we both smile at the same time? I don't want to be the guy smiling for. And I don't know how many times we are both ready to reconcile at the same time. There are times when I'll test the waters to see if she's ready or she's still mad, but it takes a while to do that. But when it's somebody outside, it takes even longer because that's no, they're not living with you, they're not having that innate trust anyway that you built up. But I think it's okay to pray to God and say, I can't do this, help me. But verify always. Till that point where you then decide that verification has gained enough credibility that now you can indeed move on. But I think you should verify. Even the people you trust, you should verify. It establishes an accountability pattern.
Because we just assume that everything's fine and will always be fine.
Yeah.
We assume that we'll always have the capacity to earn, always have the capacity to hold our positions.
Right.
And then when it doesn't go that way, we freak out like I said, there is no God. I think we need to live more in the realm of reality and
Right.
be more in touch with reality.
Yes.
So just wondering how to work through that and prepare, be prepared, better prepared, so that you don't
Right.
fall apart when it happens, because it's going to happen.
Absolutely right. It's definitely going to happen. And the other thing is, the term common sense is not that it's, use your common sense. Use your brains is what I would say. That, God has given that for you. When a car is coming, you don't stand in front of it. So why would you trust a person who's not proved worthy of that trust? You're not being unfaithful or you're lacking in faith because you're not trusting a brother. That brother or sister has made it evident that you shouldn't trust them. And so I would say give and take. I don't know about jobs and money and career and things like that. I think you've got it's much more harder trust where you say you're providing for me. I wanted to come back to India. I haven't been back for 15 years. Partly because the government of India didn't give me a visa. They denied me a visa 10 years ago. And then partly because my work got busy. So I have to have faith that God will give this to me and trust Him for it. But His timing is necessary. And so with the job, it's the same thing. You're trusting God to provide you funds and a job. But His timing sometimes. I keep going back to Galatians and the idea that Christ was born, God sent His Son, and the word is the fullness of time. In the fullness of time, when everything is the right thing. I think that's the phrase I use when I'm waiting on the Lord. It's, God, you're going to provide it in the fullness of time. Yes, sir.
You said before being chosen for ministry work, you were into sales and you were handling South India.
Yes.
So how hard was it for you to leave everything and start this work for God? I mean, consider the fact that
Right.
you're going to leave your job, a well-paying job.
Right.
How difficult was that
Yeah.
for you?
Personally, it was very easy. But it was very difficult in relationship with my family. My parents did not like it. My sister did not like it. When I went to the US for my MBA, my sister was a medical doctor who was already in New York. And so she paid for my education. And the expectation was that I would then turn around and pay for my brother, who was in India, and pay for his education. And then I decided to go into the ministry. And so they were saying, you're not going to pay for your brother. I said, no, I never said that. All I said is I was going to the ministry. And they said, well, you don't have any money to pay for him. I said, that's true. I don't have money to pay for him. So they were very, very, very angry with me. And so in that sense, it was hard. It was hard to deal with their anger. It was hard to deal with their frustration. My mother, in fact, said, you go and get a job and earn lots of money and let all your children become missionaries. And pastors. So you pay back the family what you owe the family, and you let your children do whatever they, you be that way. And so you have to deal with it. You have to. I think over time, now they're all very wonderful people who support my ministry. In one sense, my brother is not alive, my father and mother passed away. But I'm 69, so you should expect some of that to have happened. But my sister is a strong supporter. She helped fund this trip that I'm taking now. Yes, sir. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, then you have a question, go for it.
You were talking about marrying a non-believer. Say in a family, someone older is getting married, is interested in marrying a non-believer. How does one, as a young person, say that no, this is wrong? Because I think in 1 Corinthians there's something about if your wife or husband is a non-believer,
You should leave them.
no, it says that they are saved through you.
Right.
So they're going to throw that back at you, and also they're going to say that who are you to tell me what
Right.
authority? How do you as a young person say anything?
I think I wouldn't go and say you shouldn't do this. I always use the other approach of saying, have you considered this? How is this? I noticed you're going to marry a non-believer. You're older than me. And because you're older than me, you're setting an example for me. And I know there's a verse in scripture that says you shouldn't be unequally yoked to unbelievers. So what example are you setting to me, and how do you explain this verse to me in light of the fact you're going against it? I would never just give a directive to them that says you're doing this or you're doing this. I always turn it around and say, can you explain your actions in light of the scripture? Because I'm sure you've thought of this, because you've decided not to follow it. So you must have looked at it and said, okay, here's the flaws to not follow it. And so if you pose your points in the form of questions, so instead of saying, when they say this, then instead of saying, no, that's not what it says, this is it, I would say, so how would you explain something like this? How would you deal with this issue? How would you do that? So when I'm younger, talking to someone older, or most likely, I've always been in the number 2 position for now about 40 years of my career. I've never been the number 1 person. And so I've always got to go to the number 1 person and say they're wrong. And so they're wrong all the time. So I would always phrase it as, how would you explain this? Or what would you do knowing this? So A, they might come up and say, oh, I didn't know that. Or B, they might give me a reason. And then the third time, which is sometimes has happened quite often, they'll turn around and say, how would you do it? Thank you. Now I'll tell you how I would do it. Yeah. So it goes all ways, but then as younger people, we can't make a decision for them. Ultimately, they have to own the decision. Yes, sir.
Adding on to that, and also the previous question about dealing with relationships which makes it harder, not the choices which you want to make for ministry, for spirituality, but when the relationships do put that pressure on you, and when also that you get to be number 2 in most of the decisions which are like in your close relationships as well, there will be a pent-up frustration which will add on, if not like immediately, but then even if you're not impulsive, it will simmer and it will ride on. How would you deal with that? And what has been the fastest way of you to deal with that? Is there anything which comes to you? Is it just scripture? Is it experience? Is it a secret?
I don't, I'm not, I mean, I'm sure there is all of that there. I think the most frustrating to me is when the decisions are made closest to me.
Yeah.
So if my wife makes a decision, that's the most frustrating to me. Then my children is second, and then the workplace is third, or the ministry is more and more distant, you know. And I've just got to, it's learned over time, the art of letting go. You know, this thing, because with my children and my spouse, it's like, I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want this to be, you know, something that will harm you or affect you and things like that. So I have to come back and say, are you aware of the consequences? Are you ready to pay the consequences? And I want to hear them say, yes. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they say, you're an old fool. It's not going to happen. You know? So you just got to learn how to let go, because you're a limited human being with limited powers and capacity, and God has to take care of it, you know. And then all you can do is pray to God, God, please help this person deal with this issue. And many times in my job, when I've had my reports, my direct reports telling me they're going to do something, many times as a leader, I have told them, here are the two choices. If you do this, this is going to happen, and this you do, this is going to happen. And the guy says, or the gal says, I'm going to do this. And I said, that's not a good decision, but I'm going to let you try it. And I want you to tell me what happens at the end, and I want you to show me your receipt for that experience. Because one of my thing is that if you pay for something with experience, hang on to the receipt, because you don't have to pay for it again.
Pastor Junias is around, so you can ask any questions in person over breakfast. Please stick around. I also wanted to remind us that Waterline meets here. It's our men's connect, where we create an environment